So I'm Cassidy. I'm from Alabama. I lived there since I was 5, and it's the place to be. Roll Tide. But when I got my mission call while I was living in Alabama, I opened my call letter and it said, Sister McFarlane, you have been assigned to labor in the Florida Tampa mission. And I looked at my parents and I was very confused. I think I actually said, what the crap? Because I was kind of bummed, Tampa was only a 12-hour drive from my house, and it didn't make sense why I would be going to a place that was so close to home. But it's because of my mission that I had a prayer answered, a prayer that was 18 years in the making. When I was a year and a half old, I was traveling with my mom and my older sister, and we were driving across the country, and we stopped at a rest stop in Omaha, Nebraska. And while my sister and I were playing, I got bit by a rattlesnake. And my mom said that I started crying and screaming, and I wasn't calming down, and the snake was still attached to my leg because it's a stupid snake. And a cop was at the rest stop, and he ran over and he shot the snake off my leg. And at that point, he contacted the local hospital and asked what he should do. And he was told that I needed to calm down, quit screaming, quit crying, because my heart rate was so high and that was rushing the venom to my heart. And at that point, a random man walked up to my mom and asked if he could give me a priesthood blessing. And we didn't know this man, but he explained that he was a member of the church, and my mom was stoked. She said, "That's our church, please give her a blessing." And so my mom was holding me, and she listened as he gave me a blessing, and all he said was, "I bless you that you'll be okay." And my mom thought in that moment that I had died because I went limp in her arms. She said my eyes rolled to the back of my head, that my breathing slowed way, way down. And so I was able to be calm enough for, in theory, the venom to slow down as it coursed through my veins. But then I was life-flighted to the nearest hospital, which was about an hour away. And I was given 8 vials of antivenom in the helicopter. The local bishop met us at the hospital, and he gave me an additional blessing, and my mom asked how he knew to meet us there. And he said that he got a call from this man at the rest stop who gave me that first blessing. And so the bishop stuck around for a little bit, and he asked my mom if she would like the missionaries to come give me another blessing. And so the missionaries came, and they administered to me. And then my dad finally showed up. He was on a business trip, so he had an excuse to not be there, but he finally got there, and he gave me a 4th and final blessing. And right before I was taken back into surgery to have my leg amputated, the swelling started going down. And so I still have both my legs, and it was a miracle. And we always attributed the fact that I even survived that whole ordeal to that man who gave me the initial blessing. So back to my mission, super bummed to go to Tampa. I was so confused. But about 15 months into my mission, I had been serving in an area for 7 months, and I had grown really close to a member there, and her name is Sister Sherwood. And I had gotten news that I was going to be transferred out of the area. And so I called Sister Sherwood, and I told her that I would be leaving, and she offered to take my companion and I out to lunch the following day before I left. And so while we were eating lunch at Cracker Barrel, which is the chosen restaurant of the South, I started to feel this very strong prompting to share my rattlesnake story with her. And it wasn't one that I was super comfortable sharing because it was a very personal experience. But I also always felt kind of bad that I didn't know who that initial man was to give me a blessing. So I kept shoving that prompting out of my mind for about 20 minutes, and Sister Sherwood asked me, she said, "Sister McFarlane, you look kind of sick. Are you okay?" And I said, "Oh, I have a story I need to tell you." And so I started telling her this story, and all I said was that I was 1.5 years old. We were at a rest stop in Omaha, Nebraska, and I got bit by a rattlesnake. And she interrupted me, and she said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Was there a cop at the rest stop who came over and shot the snake off your leg? And I said, yeah. And then she said, did a random man offer to give you a blessing? And I started crying because I had no idea what was happening. I knew that I had never told Sister Sherwood this story before. But I nodded in agreement. And then she asked if the local bishop met us at the hospital to give me another blessing. I asked her how she knew all those details, and she explained that there was a man in a ward that she lived in previously in Arizona, and his name is Jay Simmons. And he would always tell this story of a little girl who was at a rest stop in Omaha, Nebraska about 18 years ago who got bit by a rattlesnake, and how he gave her a blessing, but he never knew how she ended up. And so in that moment, I started freaking out, and I didn't believe it. I didn't think that that could actually be the same man. But she encouraged me to call him. And so I called him on her cell phone, and he answered and said, hey, Sue, because that's Sister Sherwood's name. And I said, this isn't Sue. My name is, Sister McFarlane. And I explained how I was pretty sure that he saved my life about 18 years ago at that time. And I told him what had happened, and he was crying on the other end. I was crying on my end. My companion was crying. We were all crying. Because we never thought that that prayer would ever be answered. But then Jay went on to explain how he was having kind of a hard time with his faith in the church because he didn't understand to what extent his priesthood blessings had ever worked in the past. And I was able to say, well, you saved my leg, let alone my life. And we had a really cool experience together. And that moment, and many other moments on my mission, but that one specifically proved to me that I had to go to Tampa. I was never going to receive an answer to that prayer to figure out who that man was unless I went on my mission to a place so close to home. And I met Jay's wife last summer, and we all stay in touch now, and I'm looking forward to meeting Jay and the rest of his family in the future. But I truly believe and know that God knows exactly where to send every single one of us on our missions. He is not going to send us to a place where we won't be affected or that we won't be able to affect someone else's life. He knows exactly what we need, who we need to talk to, who we need to develop relationships with in order to have successful missions and successful lives. And it was incredible. And based on that, you may get your mission call and feel kind of bummed out about it, but I know that you're going exactly where you need to go. I hope that this story has helped you to realize that you can make a difference no matter where you go on your mission. And if you want to hear more stories or more tips and tricks on how to prepare for a mission, go ahead and subscribe to this channel. It's a great one, and you'll be able to get a lot of good insight and great ideas on how to prepare. So thank you.